Senate Appropriations Committee's budget mark for fiscal 2021 includes big increases for F-35 funding and big cuts for research and development. The request would cut RDT&E spending by $2.1 billion next year. Major General Arnold Punaro, U.S. Marine Corps retired, is CEO of the Punaro Group, member of the Defense Business Board. Arnold, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming back. Is it fair, using the information that I just laid out there, to call the F-35 program a winner, to call RDT&E losers, or is it more nuanced than that, Arnie?
I think France is glad to be back, and I think we need to put this in perspective because I don't think this is really a case of winners and losers. You have to look at the total. The total in the appropriation bills, including MILCON, $739 billion, which is the bipartisan budget agreement, and that means DOD is spending about $2 billion a day. And there's $100 billion still in the research and development accounts, $130 billion in the procurement accounts. So the R&D accounts, even with that shift of $2 billion, which is just one day spending and a very, very minuscule percentage of the overall total, the R&D for microelectronics, hypersonics, quantum, robotics, all the things that are keys to the future are funded very robustly in the procurement bill. Obviously, they've added some ships and airplanes, and which means they're focusing a little bit more on the present than the future, but I do not think they've underfunded R&D at all.
I appreciate the nuance because I get caught up in the same game I think other Pentagon observers do, which is trying to make this into a horse race. And it sounds to me like what you're suggesting is the most important thing is, are we or are we not continuing to align budget priorities with the national defense strategy? That's what I'm reading between the lines. Is that fair, Arnold?
I think it is fair to say that there's tremendous bipartisan support for the national defense strategy, particularly the focus on great power competition against China. However, I would point out the new administration is going to have to make some adjustments in the NDS because all our leaders have said you need 3 to 5% real growth to implement the strategy. We're going to have flat budget. This is a flat budget compared to FY20. The current administration projects a flat budget going forward with the deficit pressures and other pressures we have. So we're going to have a strategy force mismatch, and that's got to be corrected. You just can't have a wish list for a strategy. You've got to make it realistic. So there are going to have to be some adjustments there.
And the dynamic as far as making those adjustments is interesting to me because I don't recall a time that I've been paying attention to this stuff, Arnold, that I have seen both political parties with disagreements about how to proceed moving forward. The chairman of the HASC, Adam Smith, said recently he doesn't want to cut the defense budget, but he sees fellow members of the Democratic caucus in the House that would favor that. And we see in the Senate there are a number of Republicans that are at least thinking, if not saying out loud, about what to do about deficits. So there aren't the clear markers that I see moving forward that there normally are. Do you see clear markers in those areas, Arnold?
Actually, Francis, again, I look at the long march of history here. In the last 56 years, we've had divided government for 36 of those years, and our national security has fared very well. I mean, I was the staff director of the Armed Services Committee when we had to work with some of the same issues that Adam Smith has outlined that members of his caucus are concerned about. The ICBM leg, the MX at the time, there was the Strategic Defense Initiative, there was the B-2 bomber, and there was a lot of talk about, well, we've got to cut those. But when it was all said and done, national security, in my day and in today's day, with the leaders on the two authorizing committees and appropriation committees, they've approached these matters in a very bipartisan way. Joe Biden was in the Senate with my boss, Senator Sam Nunn, for 24 years. He's a mainstreamer when it comes to national security policy. All his top people that are around him, the people that he's named for his defense transition team, these are Pentagon savvy, very strong pro-national defense. So frankly, there's always this Sturm and Dern doing the markups and back and forth. But in the final analysis, I'm very confident we're going to maintain a very strong national security going forward.
I want to call on your knowledge then of the figures here as you just outlined. And you mentioned President-elect Biden's national security team that's going to be working on defense issues as soon as they're able to start to do so. What should industry be thinking about regarding a new national defense strategy, or more broadly, a new national defense posture in a Biden administration?
Well, we know him very well. He's well known to us. His top people are well known to us. He's been in government, in the Senate, in the Vice President's office, worked with our industry once he left government. So he's a mainstream person. I think there are going to be some priorities of his that are different from the current administration. Obviously, he's going to want to strengthen our relations with our alliances. Our industry is very supportive of that. He'll probably rejoin some of the treaties that have been left in recent days. You know, I think we understand and realize that from industry's role to make sure we have the world's finest military, you recruit and train the best people, you give them constant and realistic training, of some of which industry supports, and we want to give our warfighters the very finest technology so they're never in a fair fight, whatever that fight in the future may be. So industry's role is going to continue to be critical to implement the national security strategy that a new president will implement. But again, there's strong bipartisan support for great power competition, and particularly against China. I don't see that really changing. And so we look forward to working with the new administration. Again, the people that are around him, the people on the transition team, the names you hear, the great mentioners speculating about senior jobs in the Pentagon, these are people that we know in industry really well, and we will be very, very supportive of them.
Arnold, there's always more to talk about than there is time to do it. Thank you very much for coming back, sir.
Anytime. Great privilege and pleasure.